Welcome to I Said What I Said, a sports podcast giving you opinions not heard anywhere else. I'm your host, Brad Wakai, joined by my co-host, Tyson Gentry. And today, Tyson, we're jumping into the NFL Week 3 recap here, and we are doing this at halftime of the Monday Night Football game. But we saw enough that potentially in the stock down report that we could be jumping, or Week 4. Yeah, geez, time flies, man. Holy smokes.
I was like,
Week
shit,
4
did I
NFL.
miss something?
No, clearly I did because I can't believe it's flying by so quick. But week 4 NFL as a reset, and we're doing that at halftime of this Monday night game. And Tyson may have something to say in our stock up, stock down report about the New York Giants that are playing. Before we dive right in, make sure to hit subscribe. Make sure to like if you're watching on YouTube, or give us a rating if you're listening in podcast form. That really helps us out. But Tyson, enough of us. Let's jump right in, man. So week 4, we kind of highlighted it last week that there were some games that we'll see. We wanted to learn a lot about teams this week. What did you think you learned, if anything?
I think everybody sucks. That's like the main takeaway that I have. We're at the quarter point of the year, so it's a little it's getting harder and harder to keep holding on to teams like the Cincinnati Bengals and stuff, just based on what we've seen at this point. So like it's letting go of priors and then figuring out that Zach Wilson like might be the best quarterback in the NFL. That was a unique twist to end Sunday night. But my main takeaway from this week, Brad, is like I just still don't. I'm not ready to say one team's head and shoulders above everybody else. I know everybody, like the 49ers have looked awesome, but you don't get to use the cakewalk excuse against everybody else and then look at the 49ers schedule and say, well, they're actually beating real teams. Like I think everybody's the top teams are really good, and there's a handful of them.
I think so too. That's my takeaway so far. It's like we have the clear peak of the NFL, right? I think there's probably four or five teams that we can safely throw in there and say, okay, these are head and shoulders above the rest of the league. There's only a few, Tyson, I feel like this year that are in the middle of that pack. You know, that are kind of like, okay, well, they have a chance if they play really well in the postseason, or if everything breaks right, they have a legitimate chance. And then the rest of the league, it's just very questionable coaching, bad quarterback play, defenses that don't want to tackle, defenses that give up huge plays, and it's not been a good product to start the season.
I don't know, man. I look. I know this maybe didn't make for the best podcast right there when I just paused like that, but I'm in deep thought over here trying to figure out. Like if I'm running through in my head right now, how many teams through 4 weeks do I think can win the Super Bowl? And the number is certainly smaller than it was a year ago.
I think so too, especially as we're 4 games through the season now. You know, like last year there was a ton that we could consider and point at and be like, okay, those are contenders, or we think they're going to be good, and we're just waiting for a turnaround. And this year we're watching things, and I'm just like, man, scratch them off the list, scratch them off the list. Like they're going to have a major turnaround, and I don't know if that's coming or not. So I agree with you. I think it's the rich have gotten richer compared to last year, and the poor have gotten substantially poorer when we look at the bottom. And that wasn't the case coming in this year, Tyson. If we're being frank, like how many people were excited about the Bears? How many people were excited about the possibility of the Panthers, for an example? You know, the Vikings were in the playoffs last year. They look horrible. The Giants, same thing. You know, it's just, I mean, the Jets, you know, now Aaron Rodgers is out. You knock a contender out there.
Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. Like nobody knows what the hell's going on, pretty much across most of the AFC right now. And there are teams like the Eagles are 4-0. I don't think you'd be outside of your mind to say I haven't seen enough to think that this team can win the Super Bowl. I honestly don't know if you'd be outside of your mind to say it. I don't think the Chiefs look like they're going to repeat. They don't look like the class of the AFC right now. The best part, Brad, is in 4 weeks' time, all these takes are going to sound pretty stupid.
That's the beauty of the NFL. Absolutely. It happens every single season. So, Tyson, let's just jump into the headlines of week 4 here. And we've circled a few like coming out of the weekend here. And I think the biggest one, like we were talking about it, I mean, the Bills just completely slowed down the Dolphins. And everybody was looking to this game as like, this is going to be the best one of the weekend. We can't believe it's at 1:00 Eastern. Like, what is everybody doing? And it turns out maybe it was a good idea to have this game at 1:00 Eastern, because the Bills just steamrolled the Dolphins 48-20. Bills scored 31 points in the first half. They're up 31-14 going into the locker room. And this was a game, you know, the Dolphins had it last year against the Chargers, but this was a game plan that the Bills had that completely stifled anything that the Dolphins wanted to do in their quick game that they've been able to accomplish through the first 3 weeks. They were physical with their receivers and ultimately couldn't get that offense off the ground.
Look, not every quarterback they face is going to play as good as Josh Allen did on Sunday, but what's been kind of the main bugaboo, if there was one, through the first 3 weeks for the Dolphins? Obviously, they start 3-0, they score 70 points, all that stuff's really fun. People are running the ball whenever they wanted against this defense. So Vic Fangio says that's not going to happen. Josh Allen just ate, like just killed him, and so that's really concerning for me going forward. Obviously, this team's going to get Jalen Ramsey back. They're banged up in the secondary, anyways, without him. But like, you want to be able to believe, okay, well, that's just Josh Allen. He's going to have a Josh Allen game. But when you walk into the playoffs, and it's probably going to be Josh Allen or Pat Mahomes that this team is going to see to get to where they want to go, these things have to improve because this defense is it's pretty bad, man. I mean, they're missing Jalen Phillips and however many excuses you want to have. Vic Fangio is supposedly like he's the GOAT defensive coordinator, right? You listen to most of these people talk. They were unprepared. Like Khalil Shakir is doing whatever he wants out there. That's an issue that's a lot bigger than a 28-point loss. And by the way, I mean, if you didn't see that coming, like reading the tea leaves just in the history of the NFL, it's really hard to go from winning by 50 points to even winning the next week, let alone covering the spread or being competitive.
This is a place that the Dolphins have struggled to play up in Buffalo, regardless of the weather. And everybody, I know a lot of people are pointing to, well, it's not late in December, so the weather won't come into that factor.
Not Miami.
I think the thing that people forget is these are human beings heading into a road game. Like if you play bad there and you struggle there, like that's on your mind. It's not just like, no, this is a new team this year. So, there's not a lot of people, on the same team as last year, just using that as an example. There's a reason why it's hard to play in Denver in September. At least it was, like with that altitude early to start the season. There's a reason why it's tough to go to Lambeau when it's snowing and when it's really cold out. Like it's just a factor of a stadium for other teams that come in there. And for whatever reason, when the Dolphins go to Buffalo, they struggle. So I think that was something here. And Tyson, you mentioned that Josh Allen was phenomenal, man. 21 to 25, 320 through the air, 4 touchdown passes, ran another one in. So he had 5 total touchdowns, only 4 incompletions. Like he was absolutely ridiculous, had a perfect passer rating of 158.3. I think people are going to come out of this saying, well, the Dolphins are frauds, which I don't think so. I think that's a major overreaction. This is just an instance where I think Sean McDermott, who's an elite defensive mind of his own, put together a great game plan to slow this down. And when you say Vic Fangio as well, like, yes, he's a really good defensive coordinator. Tyson, we've said on the show, it doesn't happen in the first year. It's a hard system to learn. So everybody's like, no, Dolphins have Fangio. Their defense is going to be awesome. It's like, well, you got to go back and look at all the different times that Fangio's taken over a defense. It does take some time. So maybe later in the season that improves, but 4 games into the season, we're not going to see an elite level of defense, especially when you're banged up.
And from a betting perspective, I think this might be the best case scenario is that the Dolphins don't go 7-0 and this thing all of a sudden flips on its head because there's going to be some reaction of them looking the way they look. And I mean, we'll get on to the next game here real fast, but Devon A-Chain is how we say it now. A-Chan. And that dude is just going to break the record in touchdowns this year. He's going to miss a game doing it.
It's crazy, man. I mean, he's been absolutely phenomenal. Heavy draft pick there from the Dolphins as they add just more speed and power to that backfield. And it's impressive to see what he's doing so far in his young career. Okay, Bengals struggle again, Tyson. And this one has kind of the NFL world shaking their head or at least scratching their head because they're like, what in the world is going on? Because the Bengals, once again, score only 3 points. Joe Burrow, 20 of 30 for 165 yards. Through 4 games, he has the lowest depth of completion in the history of the NFL, under 5 yards. It was previously rookie Drew Bledsoe who held that record. I think Burrow's either at 4.6 or 4.8. I forget what figure it is, but I know it's under 5. What in the world is going on with this team?
I want to be able to sit here and say it's Joe Burrow's calf, and that's the only reason, right? Because that seems to be the easy way out. Everyone's just saying, well, he's banged up, and that's the only reason the passing game's struggling. T. Higgins disappears too much. And like that could be a function of Joe Burrow, but then explain to me why the previous 2 seasons, why he had stretches where he had games like this. Why is Jamar Chase having to get moved to the slot in order to get the ball? Like he is open every play, and that's true. But like if you have to move your best player closer to the line of scrimmage to get the ball, it is a calf problem for Joe Burrow, but it's also just an overall offense problem because we talk about how they've improved this offensive line seemingly for the last 3 off seasons. It's like, oh, this is the time they figured it out. These guys still stink. like it doesn't. His calf is going to be hurt for the rest of this season, unless he would have to miss the rest of the year, I think, personally, because he missed all of training camp and he still looks like this. So I don't understand why 4 weeks off would all of a sudden make him healthy. Dude, it's 1.8, 2.2 seconds before he throws the ball every time. Like, this is not a quick hitter offense. This is an offense that's built around Joe Burrow creating big plays. And when he's not able to do that, there is no counter. They don't have any, like, Joe Mixon can't put this team on his back anymore. And that's really outside of him turning back the clock. Like, they have no answers.
The concerning thing here is when you watch this, and we've been critical of Zach Taylor in the past, and there was a point last season when both you and I said, maybe we got to rethink the Zach Taylor thing because let's be honest, going to a Super Bowl, going to another AFC championship game the next season, there's not very many coaches in this league who have done that. Like everybody loves Mike Tomlin and I do too. And he's really good. He's only won one Super Bowl, and Zach Taylor was about 30 seconds away from winning one as well. And he gets slammed all the time. Like, he's an idiot. He doesn't know what he's doing. So you and I kind of pulled back a little bit on that. But I will say, I do think he's the offensive mastermind here. There's something going on with this offense. Like, you either have to adjust to what your team is now and figure out how you're going to get other players involved, how you're going to move this offense down the field and not hold on to what you've done for the past 3 years with this offense and really make adjustments. Because that's what I'm seeing. Joe Burrow is not trusting the offensive line when I watch it. And some would say with good reason. He's gotten his ass beat for the better part of his career behind that offensive line. The blocking scheme, I think you can also point at and say, okay, what's going on here? Because if we're adding more free agents, we're adding better players here, and there's still continued pressure on our quarterback. What's going on with the blocking scheme? Like, is it complicated? Is it too hard? Are we not doing enough to slide pressure? So I think that's something they have to look at. Because right now, I mean, this is about to be a come to Jesus thing for the Bengals because they had real aspirations of going to the Super Bowl, and now they're sitting at 1-3 with an offense that scored 3 points in 2 games.
Stinky, dude.
It's not good. So I am red alert here for the Bengals.
I'm pretty close to red alert. The only thing keeping me from fully pushing the button is the fact that I have a futures ticket on the Cincinnati Bengals to win the Super Bowl.
Where it's not alert, Tyson, is the Houston Texans, man. I mean, how about this? We were both extremely high on D'Amico Ryans and the hiring that they had. We thought this was a slam dunk hire for this organization who wanted to get more physical, wanted to bring an identity to Houston. Because if you do a revolving door of coaches, it's just not going to work. So we love this hire. Like he was an old Texan when he played, and so he kind of knows a little bit about the city, a little bit about that organization. And Tyson, it looks like they may have their quarterback because C.J. Stroud, as bad as he was in the preseason, and there was question marks if he could sit back in a pocket at this level. He has been awesome through 4 weeks.
Dude, he's been better than pick somebody. He's been better than them. He's lapping Trevor Lawrence right now. He's been the best rookie in this class, and Anthony Richardson's been pretty good. Obviously, Bryce Young hasn't been what people thought, but C.J. Stroud is just head and shoulders above both those guys. You run down the list. He's had a better start to the season than Jalen Hurts. He's had a better start to the season than Patrick Mahomes. It's fantastic, and they're doing it. And if you've been listening to the show for a while, and I think Brad, you might be able to vouch for this, I'm the biggest Nico Collins fan in the entire world. And this dude is maybe not a true alpha, but I think we were just talking about T. Higgins, and I think Nico Collins can very well be a T. Higgins type player in the NFL, and I think we're seeing that right now. For as much shit as they got for taking C.J. Stroud at 2 and Will Anderson at 3, and you gave up your draft picks and you're going to stink. They just sent everybody's preseason darling home with plane issues, right? Like the Steelers couldn't even get off the ground after the game. That's what the Texans defense did to them. And on the flip side, Pittsburgh is as bad on offense as I thought they were going to be.
Oh,
I didn't buy any of the preseason hype, and I'm really glad right now because Matt Canada should not be a offensive coordinator in the NFL. I think that Kenny Pickett will be getting replaced within the next 2 seasons. Like, this dude stinks. And I'm sick of pretending that there's any, what are you going to salvage out of Kenny Pickett? What's Kenny Pickett's ceiling? You're going to sit here and tell me, that dude might not be better than Mac Jones, ceiling. And that's a huge issue.
if you're the Steelers, I know you don't like doing this. Mike Tomlin came out after the game and said there's going to be changes, whether that is regarding the offensive coordinator or not. My thing is, if you still, because if you have Kenny Pickett, you might as well see what you can do. You got to get another offensive coordinator. You got to see if it's him or if it's Canada. Because if you bring somebody else, they're probably not going to bring anybody in. They're going to promote from within and within the organization. But just somebody calling the plays. You got to see if maybe you can get something out of Pickett, right? Because if not, then you can move on. But like just running it back with Canada while he's on his rookie deal, that's not going to tell you anything. And by that point, you're going to be like the Giants, where, oh, one good year, let's give Daniel Jones the bag. And then, oh, that's right, he does stink. He had one good season. So I think that's a concern there. Tyson, you mentioned it with Stroud, then we'll move on. So this is from Sumer Sports. EPA per play, so expected points added per play. CJ Stroud adds 0.12 points per play, which is really good. So Brock Purdy's number one with 0.43, Tua 0.33, Josh Allen 0.31. So Stroud is above Dak Prescott, Lamar Jackson, Jared Goff, Jalen Hurts, Kirk Cousins, Jimmy Garoppolo, Deshaun Watson, who's in the negatives, Derek Carr, who's in the negatives, Trevor Lawrence, who's negative 0.13, Ryan Tannehill. So those are some names, right?
But Brad, he got a bad score on the S2 in the offseason. There's no way he can be good.
They're out of business now, right? Like, oh my God.
That's the funniest story. Oh, he got a 12 on some made-up test, so now he's not going to go too. Thanks for the money.
Let's finish with this of our headlines. I mean, 49ers continue to roll. And you said it off the top, like, okay, we can do the same thing that we did with the Eagles last year. Like, they're not playing anybody because they're not, right? Like, they really haven't played anybody,
people, though.
But they're dominating. And that's what the Eagles did last year, right? And that's what you're supposed to do when you're a good team. You're supposed to play the bad teams in front of you and smoke them, just wipe them out. The Rams gave them a little bit of trouble, but I mean, honestly, were the 49ers ever in danger of losing that game? Probably not. We had question marks about Brock Purdy coming into the season. Was it a one-hit wonder with more tape? Or the defense is going to be able to figure it out, and the defensive coordinator is going to be able to scheme something against him? The thing is, when he's in total control of the Shanahan offense, which is designed to get athletes in space, which is designed to make life easy on the quarterback, and he just doesn't make mistakes and just puts the ball in the hands of the playmakers and the spots they need to, this is sustainable. And the 49ers are continuing to prove that with Brock Purdy and these weapons, they can continue to keep it rolling.
You're going to hate this take, but I'm right. If you take the absolute ceiling of Jimmy Garoppolo with the San Francisco 49ers, and you subtract 2 to 3 interceptable passes a game, you have Brock Purdy. Like
I think that's right. Yeah,
this dude is he's more mobile than Jimmy was in that system. He's more careful with the football, but he's still one of the things that I was saying about why I didn't know if Trey Lance was going to be a great fit in San Francisco is because he doesn't just go. Like he doesn't trust his eyes. Brock Purdy sees it, lets it go, lets it rip right there. Deebo Samuel played basically a decoy role this week. Brandon Ayuk feasted. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey, I think right now, I don't know if there's an argument for anybody else to an MVP. Like this dude is just killing. He's killing everybody. But Brock Purdy, best game of the weekend in a weekend that like he didn't even need to throw the ball. Like they could have ran the ball and probably still ended up winning the game. 20 for 21. Could have hit 300 yards, touchdown. Dude, the kid can play. And I don't think everyone wants to act like, is he the long-term starter in San Francisco? Because for some reason that's still a question. What other proof do you need?
And this is coming from two guys who had doubts. Like, not anymore. I mean, the guy's playing, man, 20 of 21 for 283. Like, what else do you need to see? He's got complete control of this offense. And like you said, he doesn't make those turnover-worthy plays that Garoppolo had done previously in the system. So you kind of supercharge this offense with what Garoppolo was doing, where he puts the ball into his athletes' hands quick, puts the ball out with a good spiral, right in their hands, ready to run. And that's what Purdy's doing. He's just not making dumb mistakes. And that is super dangerous when you consider the talent they have on this roster. Like, it is crazy. And yeah, McCaffrey, 4 touchdowns. Were you kind of pissed when they let what was it, when Purdy took the QB sneak, I think it was, and they didn't give McCaffrey the chance to tie the franchise record for 5 in a game?
It's up there. It's up there for most upset that I've been. I think the most upset I've ever been. Remember when Alvin Kamara had 6 touchdowns on Christmas Eve or whatever?
Yeah.
And then Sean Payton gave Taysom Hill the last rushing touchdown instead of letting Alvin tie the record. It's close to that one, but not quite the same.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for our week 4 kind of headlines here, as there was some interesting stuff that happened. And Tyson, we gave our thoughts on just the league in general. But let's move up to our stock down. Stock up, stock down report, starting with stock up here. Who is your first pick?
My first pick is Lamar Jackson, because I'm sick of watching this dude drag this corpse of an offense up and down the field every season and not get any love for it. He gets Todd bunking, and it's fun, and it's going to be exciting, and it's going to look so much different, and it doesn't. Mark Andrews smashed this weekend, Brad. Why? Because the balls that Lamar was throwing him, especially that one in the corner of the end zone, absolutely perfect throw. Lamar Jackson is rolling out, and he's just flicking his wrist and finding Zay Flowers 40 yards down the field. Look, don't box score scout this game. I think this was his best game of the season. I don't really think it was close. The Browns defense, look, they were banged up on offense. The Browns defense is still one of the best units in the league, and the Ravens just did what they wanted. Myles Garrett had Myles Garrett moments, and that's always going to happen. But this was Lamar's best game of the year, and he did it like without Odell. Rashad Bateman's non-existent. Like this was impressive.
My stock up is Russell Wilson. And I guess technically for me, his stock wasn't necessarily like down like with the rest of the people. But I mean, coming off of last season, you had to have major question marks. And I did, just regarding if this would work in Denver with him in this offense, with a mind that like Sean Payton. Russell Wilson has been awesome. And he's coming off a game 21 of 28, 223, leading a comeback, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. Tyson, I'm pulling up Sumer here again. He's 4th in the league in expected points added per play, 0.19. Total EPA here. He's also 4th, 21.4 over the course of the season. Like, he's been really good for the Denver Broncos, top 5 in the league. Like, he's returned to that form. And so if they can figure out this defense, which I have major question marks about just because Vance Joseph is the defensive coordinator and they made Justin Fields look like Joe Montana, then I think that they can maybe compete down the stretch of the season and then into next year if they do replace the defensive coordinator. But right now, this offense is humming.
He's been good. The problem, Brad, is that Sean Payton was brought in to fix the team and not necessarily fix Russell Wilson. He's going to have a heck of a lot longer leash than Russ will, and they're going to need a scapegoat. And I don't think it's his fault. But are we going down or staying on up?
Let's stay on up.
Okay. My next stock up here, I'm going to go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Brad. I think that this is like quickly becoming apparent that they're going to win this division through 4 games. I mean, Derek Carr was banged up and all that stuff. Derek Carr also stunk like before he hurt his shoulder. So I don't know if 100% healthy Derek Carr, who doesn't score touchdowns, who's never scored touchdowns, was going to somehow find a way to score a touchdown. This defense is good enough to win games. Baker Mayfield is showing people that, like, hey, I was talented enough to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. Like, just because I was on these commercials and everyone hates me doesn't mean I can't play. Mike Evans goes out. They put up 26 points. They still can't run the ball. Rashad White is pretty wildly overrated, I think, in NFL circles as far as the way people talk about this guy. And the Bucs just rolled, dude. And they made it look easy against a division opponent that all the smart money was on preseason.
Yep, they just missed my cut for stock up. They've been super impressive. I actually like their young offensive coordinator as well. I think he's done a really good job there and really kind of putting Baker in the right spots to succeed. And Tyson, they did this without Mike Evans.
Yep.
Like, Mike Evans hurt his hamstring. He was out the second half, and the offense continued to roll here against a pretty good defense so far in the New Orleans Saints. I'm going to go stock up Sean McDermott because there were a lot of people coming into this season. Man, if they don't figure this thing out based on how they flamed out last season, could he be on the hot seat potentially? Well, he said, listen, I'm a defensive coordinator. I come from the defensive mind here. Leslie Frazier, thanks for being here. We appreciate it. I'm going to take over these duties. And this defense has been lights out. Lights out. They're 4th in expected points added per play with -0.2. EPA per pass, Tyson, -0.34. Like, they have the stifled opposing quarterbacks, and anytime they want to give up go for deep plays. They've only given up 3 passing touchdowns through the air. Completion percentage for opposing quarterbacks, 58.3%. They look aggressive. And I think that's what McDermott always brought. Like, he was the defensive coordinator for the Eagles under Andy Reid. Like, he has an aggressive style of defense. And that's what he's bringing to this Bills team. It's something I think they were missing. Like, they have an ethos here, and it's aggression.
They do. My last stock up here, Brad, and this one might be a little bit cheating. They lost the game, but Zach Wilson's stock is through the roof. like 245 yards. What was his completions? I just had it in front of me. He was 28 to 39, 245, 2 touchdowns. He had the fumble, lost the game. He didn't deserve that. That wasn't the way
No,
he deserved to go out. I mean, that was the best game he's ever had as a pro. Um, in prime time against the defending Super Bowl champs. He outplayed Patrick Mahomes. And honestly, Brad, this might be a solution to the Jets' problems is just feed the ball to Garrett Wilson. Just throw it to him over and over and over again, because then it opened up things for Allen Lazard. And Brees Hall didn't get a ton of touches. He averaged like 9 yards a carry. I think that's probably going to be pretty close to going forward. They're not going to be a great running football team. So remember when DeAndre Hopkins had like 115 catches with like TJ Yates and Brandon Weeden and stuff?
yep.
That's the season that Garrett Wilson is going to have, because that guy, he's going to get targeted 200 times. But that's an okay offense. If you can get me 6 yards a pop and I can throw this thing to you 12 times a game, we're all right with that, because that defense will keep us in it.
I completely agree. I thought he looked great, and we'll see what happens moving forward, right? Like anybody can have kind of one good game.
Do
You got
you
to
think he's
sustain.
going to play? Do you think Rodgers is going to play after week 8 or whatever he said?
No, he
There's no
can't
way.
play, dude.
There's
He
no
tore his
way.
Achilles. Like, come
No.
on. Like, if Adrian Peterson hasn't done something, then nobody else in the history of the earth can, because only that guy could do anything that's crazy. And like Rodgers, I love the confidence. I love the idea. Like, hey, I'm going to be back there, but it's just not reality, man. It's not reality. But yeah, I'm with you. Zach Wilson looked awesome. I hope he sustains it. Kind of rooting for him in a way, right? Like, I felt like the internet did
You
a
gotta
full
be.
180 on him too. Like, I know you're not on X anymore, but like everybody just loves to just hate on
Well,
Zach Wilson, and now they're out rooting for him.
I asked in one of my fantasy football leagues in the morning during the Jaguars game, there was a chat going on. Is Desmond Ritter worse than Zach Wilson?
Probably not, just based. I mean, we have a full body of work with Wilson, but if Wilson plays like that, he's way better. I mean, his ceiling is way higher than Ritter's. That's the thing. Like, I mean, Collinsworth kept saying it, right? The talent is there with Wilson. Like, he makes unbelievable throws. It's just he's a slow processor. He gets rattled, and he is inaccurate at times, which through his career has turned into bad interceptions. If he can limit those things, because he started to figure it out in that offense, where just okay, I can just let it rip. That's what he should be doing.
Dude, there was like a body swap that happened yesterday between
It was
him and
crazy.
Mahomes, because he's always doing the wild shit Mahomes does, and it never works, and it always works for Mahomes. And then last night it was the reverse.
My final stock up here is Matt Stafford, sticking with the quarterback theme here. Listen, we came into the season. Stafford, his wife, is saying, everybody's people should go out there wearing name tags because Matt doesn't really know their names and stuff like this. And it's just, oh boy, this is going to be brutal. Everybody thinks the Rams are going to suck. They're 2-2. The offense looks great, and this is without Cooper Kupp, who's coming back next week off the injury list with his hamstring injury, and it's been impressive what he's been able to do. And he's been standing back there taking a beating. We all know Matthew Stafford is just one tough guy, man. Like, he is a tough SOB, but he is moving this thing forward. He's got that offense humming, and then they actually have a real running back in Kyron Williams who's able to take some pressure off of Stafford too. And it's been great through play action. It's been great with deep attacking shots for this team. So Matt Stafford, stock up for me.
The Rams are officially, for at least for me, the first team that I've seen this season where I don't know if they're going to make the playoffs, but I'm confident they could beat absolutely anybody in the NFL.
Let's get into stock down. We love ending on negatives here. That's what we do at I Said What I Said. No,
exactly
it just works
right.
out this way.
So I'm going to start. This is
Yeah.
cheating. I got to get this one off my chest. The officiating this week was atrocious. It's horrible across the board. People want to talk about the missed holds and then the phantom hold on Sauce Gardner last night, but it was a much bigger problem than just the Sunday night game. Like, you can go through. The Eagles get called for an offensive lineman in the neutral zone when Daron Payne has his hand on the football. They're just every single game, and it's a tough job, and we get it. But how come in the Toy Story broadcast they can drop the ball, like they can track the ball and put it where it's supposed to be, but we still have to rely on these 85-year-old men's eyes to walk out and put it down? I mean, the officiating it's really bad. And I feel like, Brad, and I don't have any evidence of this, and maybe you can speak to it a little bit, is the uncatchable rule just not a thing anymore?
I have no clue. So people are asking that too, because, the 6-yard uncatchable, like somebody's going to be, Mrs. Incredible and just be elastic.
How?
I don't get it.
It doesn't make any sense. And then there were weird intentional groundings that were called yesterday that are never called. There was stuff like that where maybe by the letter of the law, they're doing a good job, but it certainly felt like it was, let's make the games about us yesterday.
Oh gosh, no, and the officiating was going to be one of mine as well. So I'll piggyback off of that quickly. There needs to be, and you said everything that I was going to say. I'm just going to put this point out here. There needs to be accountability standards in place for these officials. Like enough is enough where these guys get to hide behind, oh, it's a tough job and the NFL is going to protect them. No, if you're going to be out there and if you're going to be part of the game, you should be held at a standard like these coaches, like these players are being held to. If you make a mistake, like Robert Saleh is going to get fined for his actions on Sunday night. He's going to get fined, right? He's part of the program. He's part of this. You need to be doing this. If you are making bad calls and if you're an official and it's blatantly bad, or if you're inconsistent, things like that, like I get it, it's human error, but there needs to be some sort of accountability. And we're not seeing that. And maybe it's private, but you have to release that. I'm not talking like that BS NBA last 2 minute report where it's just a waste of time. It's like legitimate things like these officials, you have demotions, you have things like this. Like maybe there's a larger pool. I don't know, but it's bad, Tyson.
It's tough too because as like they get more and more in bed with sports betting, it's impossible to ignore that like some of these things are directly impacting the spreads. Like the Chiefs game last night, the books had like 80% of incoming bets on the Chiefs to cover, and all like there's just little stuff throughout the game, and it's just like wait a minute, Tim Donaghy's out here.
It's crazy, man. So all right, mine another bet, Frank Reich, man, stock down for Reich. And we loved him, OC of the Eagles. He was a big reason why the Eagles won the Super Bowl. It's been a disaster since he's left. Like the Colts, to be fair, he thought he was going to have Andrew Luck, then Luck retires. So he's got a revolving door at quarterback. The front office and Chris Ballard never necessarily wanted to draft a quarterback because they thought they had the ready-made roster, so they kept doing stopgaps. He's been horrible since arriving in Carolina. Like this offense is bad, and everybody's pointing to Bryce Young. You have to do things and put things in place to help your quarterback, especially a young one. The offensive designs are bad. Nobody's getting open. I mean, Adam Thielen, when he was with Andy Dalton, like he finally was getting open in the slot. Why isn't that happening when Bryce Young's out there? Like it's like it was a completely different offense that they're running, at least from the naked eye. That when I've watched these games, so I don't know what's going on here. And the offensive line play since Frank Reich arrived in Indianapolis and now here in Carolina, it's bad. So something needs to get figured out here. It's stock down, Frank Reich.
And it's tough because you like the book, everybody knows about Bryce Young. This processing speed is unreal. It's like second to none the way the guy can see the field and stuff. And then it's not translating. And I'm really hesitant to say that's a Bryce Young issue and not a guy I've seen flame out other places. So I agree Frank Reich had a bad week. But I'm going to one-up you here with coaches. Brad, we've been getting him a ton of shit to Justin Fields, and rightfully so. Matt Eberflus is the worst head coach in the NFL.
Ooh, that takes a lot for you to say too with your boy McDaniels there.
Yeah, well, Brandon Staley telling Asante Samuel Jr. to get down yesterday on that pick just about catapulted him back up to number 1 on my rankings because that was brain dead as it gets. But the Broncos are up handily. Was it 28-7? Or the Bears were up 28. Was it 28-7? It was 28 something.
It was 28-14.
Gotcha. Against the Broncos, Justin Fields looks awesome. Khalil Herbert is having one of his best days as a pro, and you find a way to fumble that bag. Look, the team, maybe you want the number 1 overall pick. Maybe you want the top 2 overall picks. As it's sitting right now, that's what they're going to get. Brad, you have to win games. You can't just like willingly take losses for 2 years. Cleveland is still crawling themselves out of a hole that was basically built by their own hands. And Chicago is on their way to doing that. And you get rid of Roquan Smith because Roquan can't play in the 4-3, and like he's not going to get off blocks, and that is what it is, and like that's fine. But then you don't replace him with anybody. Like we give Ryan Poles so much credit for getting a king's ransom for the number 1 overall pick. Brad, did that take that much GM work?
No, we could have done that deal.
I don't really understand what like. I think it's time that Justin Fields gets a pass for a week because the reason the Bears lost this game was 100% on the coaching staff.
And you're right. They were up 28-7 at one point. They didn't score a single point. That came at the 4:11 mark. Denver scored with 14 seconds left in the third to cut it to 28-14. They scored 17 unanswered points, 3 touchdowns, 2 touchdowns in the game-winning field goal in the fourth quarter as the Bears fell again to 0-4. New England Patriots, my stock down. This is a complete disaster. Complete disaster. Now, Matthew Judon's out for an extended period of time. I think the whole season with torn biceps. Christian Gonzalez out indefinitely with a dislocated shoulder. So that defense is going to take a hit. And that was the only thing that was good on this team. And now we thought there was going to be an improvement in Mac Jones. If you bring over a real offensive coordinator and Bill O'Brien, I think right now what we're seeing, there's just no creativity. Bill Belichick has done a bad job as a general manager of bringing in players. Like, he's given a lot of money out to players who can't separate. Like, nobody's getting open in this offense. And Mac Jones, like, is his ceiling high? No. Is he a bad quarterback right now? He's not good. Like, I don't know necessarily if he's a bad quarterback right now. Like, it would suggest yes. One thing too, remember his rookie year, he looked super comfortable in the pocket. That is not happening anymore. Like, he's not trusting the offensive line. He's not trusting himself to stay back there and find open receivers because, frankly, there is nobody. So all around the operation in New England is stocked down for me. It's a disaster.
Well, and then you add on top of it, Juju Smith-Schuster's off the field on like third and must-haves. Mike Gesicki drops a touchdown to start the game, and not that the Patriots would have won the game, but it definitely changes the complexion of that one. And then, Brad, my last stock down here. This one hurts for me to do personally. I think the Atlanta Falcons have no shot to win this division. I thought they were going to get it done through defense and running the football, and that's not going to happen. They're just not going to score enough points to make the playoffs this season, and which stinks because I still enjoy watching the Atlanta Falcons, as sick as it is. I like a lot of the players on their team. The rumor that Kyle Pitts is injured, like, is something that I'm going to buy into just because it's the only thing that makes sense, that Johnny Smith is the central part of these game plans. But look, I love Arthur Smith, but at a certain point, it's like, dude, you got to, like, something has to change because people are saying, has the NFL passed Bill Belichick by? And that's maybe a conversation worth having. But is Arthur Smith even playing in the same league as everybody else?
Remember you told us it's going to be different this year. We're going to stretch the ball down the field. That hasn't happened. And that was the reason why I was reticent on the Falcons. Like, I can't trust Desmond Ridder. I saw him at Cincy. Like, all these NFL guys, they don't watch college football. Like, we watch Desmond Ridder. Why were they trying to sell you Desmond Ridder? He's not good.
I just thought that with 2 6'5" targets that could have jumped 40 inches in the air, he'd be able to throw for more than 90 yards. But Bijan Robinson is leading the league amongst running backs in receptions, which is something nobody would have thought probably coming into the season. So that's something.
Yeah, that's something, certainly. Tyson, to close this out, I'm not going to make this quick because, listen, the New York Giants, I thought you were going to say something, so I will. This is a complete dumpster fire in New York. And this is what happens every single time with a New York team. If they overachieve anything, it's the best thing in the world. This season, they have been extremely poorly coached. Like, they don't tackle. They can't tackle. The offense is a joke compared to what it was last season. They have a much tougher schedule, so you're actually seeing some cracks in what this team is. And this is a head coach in Daboll. We like him, but there is no reason why that guy should have won Coach of the Year over Nick Sirianni, who went 14-3. I think he should have won. Or Kyle Shanahan, who did what he did with Brock Purdy. It was absolute lunacy. But, of course, they win 9 games. They go to the playoffs. So, woo, New York, baby. Yeah, we're back. And they're getting steamrolled right now on Monday Night Football. They're going to drop to 1-3, 0-2 at home. Stock down. The Giants suck. But I knew that. Apparently, nobody else in the world did besides you and me.
So there are 3 minutes left in the third quarter. The Giants have 105 passing yards.
Beautiful.
Right? That's your $40 million man right there. Why go out and get Darren Waller if you don't want to throw him the football?
I have no clue.
It doesn't make any sense, man. But the NFL it's been fun through 4 weeks, that's for sure.
Yeah, it absolutely has. We actually made a little bit of money this weekend as well, I believe.
I hit my biggest parlay of the year so far. Got a little 37Xer home yesterday, so that was nice. And all those picks are available on the chalkboard. It's in the App Store, Google Play, wherever you download your apps. It's just type in ISWIS presents the Roundtable Bets. It will let you write in. It's a free group. And look, we had a pretty good week in the NFL. My picks actually on the show that I gave out was the worst that I did this week. We have a little pick and pull that Brad and I are in with a handful of other people, and I think combined this week we were 9-1.
9-1.
So that's a pretty decent for the kids. So if you want the picks, they'll be in there. And maybe just start fading the golf stuff, Brad. I think that's where we're at.
I cursed the U.S. I think that's what it was. But no, I think I'm actually going to have a good golf year this year. I had a horrible one last year. I had a really good one 2 years ago, which I really wanted it to happen last year. I just could not see anything. But this year, I'm confident in the golf. We're getting it back on track. I think with the live guys gone and kind of adjusting to different things. Another story for a different day. But I think we're going to be right this year. But in the meantime, like I said at the start, like, subscribe, and share. If you're watching on YouTube, smash that like button. Go ahead and stay subscribed so you don't miss any of the content that we're putting out. And if you're listening to podcasts from, rate and review, give us a 5-star. That really helps us become more discoverable in the App Store as well. And it really helps us out, and we do appreciate it. Follow us on our socials as well. X, Instagram, TikTok. It's all the same at ISWIS_pod. We'll be back in the middle of the week talking college football. We're starting to get into some big conference play, man. Like, this is perfect. This is what college football is about, as games start to matter a lot more as we get closer and closer to literally like nut cutting time, when people got to make their college conference final. So it's about to start cranking up in college football. Make sure to not miss that. That'll be here later in the week. Until then, guys, peace.